Hi guys, this is Stephanie Matthews again, here to talk to you about the book Gut Reactions, The Science of Weight Gain and Loss by Simon Quellen Field. And I just want to talk to you guys about Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. Chapter 2 goes on into sugars and other carbs, and Chapter 3 goes into fats and proteins. In Chapter 2, sugars and other carbs, he talks about sugar in the American diet and how it's everywhere. He talks about the differences between, drinking juice and eating just the fruit itself. He talks about how juice is just basically sugar water, how the little nutrients that's in that juice is really not even worth drinking for. It's better to just go ahead and eat an orange or whatever other fruit that you're going to eat, because you get that fiber with it, which will fill the stomach up and help it to feel like it's full. He talks about how soft drinks and juice is a really quick way to get your sugar in its liquid form, and how terrible it is for the body and what it does to the body when you do drink soda and juice. He goes into talking about how it interferes with the homeostasis systems in the body. Again, he talks a lot about homeostasis um, and how it raises the blood sugar levels quickly. It talks about how dangerous that condition is, how the body responds by sending insulin into the blood. Insulin's job is to tell the fat and muscle cells to remove the sugar from the blood by storing it as fat. After we eat more unprocessed foods, glucose is released into our blood slowly, and insulin levels don't spike sharply. But when we eat things high in sugar, like processed foods, it does the exact opposite. He goes on to talk more about different ingredients like malted barley flour, which is another term for sugar. So, when you're looking at the ingredients on things, you have to really pay attention to all the different words in the ingredient list. That actually is just sugar. And malted barley flour is one. Corn syrups, anything with glucose, dextrose, brown sugar syrup, molasses, even peanut butter. He talks about that as well and how it masks in the ingredients. Other names for sugars found in processed foods include also invert sugar, invert cane syrup, tapioca syrup, malt flavor, and there's many other different names as well. He talks about the different molecules and stuff for sugars, glucose, and fructose. He talks about the different carbons, the oxygen, and the white hydrogens. He talks about how the glucose can be used immediately by the muscles, brain, and other organs. The fructose is sent to the liver for processing. He talks about fructose does not raise insulin levels. Thus, the appetite-stimulating hormone ghrelin is still produced, and we still feel hungry. The satiety hormone leptin is not produced, so we don't feel full. The glucose receptors in the brain's hypothalamus that tells us to stop feeding are not activated. The tasty food is still in front of us, and our homeostasis mechanisms aren't kicking in to stop us from overeating. So a lot of these sugars really lead to overeating, excess sugar in the bloodstream, things like that. It contributes to a lot of, heart disease, strokes, and diabetes, which we all know about. It causes heart disease by making the liver produce too much uric acid. Uric acid raises blood sugar by reducing nitric acid production. Nitric acid is the molecule that makes blood vessels dilate, lowering blood pressure. It is what nitroglycerin pills release into the blood to relieve angina. Uric acid is what causes the disease gout. The high insulin levels raise blood pressure combined with the uric acid that prevents the blood vessels from getting the nitric oxide signal to dilate. We now have two signals leading to hypertension or high blood pressure. The high insulin levels also interfere with the brain's leptin receptors, and leptin is the hormone that tells the brain to stop eating. Leptin also reduces the reward signals in the brain that we get from eating, so eating more isn't as much fun. Without the leptin signal, we still get the reward from the fructose and we keep eating. Eating fructose not only makes us fat, it makes us hungry. We eat more and get fatter still. Fructose seems to be a direct relationship between increased obesity, metabolic syndrome, and diabetes. Other symptoms of fructose consumption are insulin resistant, increased fats in the blood, impaired glucose homeostasis, increased body fat, and high blood pressure. The effects of fructose in the diet are in part due to the changes in gut bacteria that a high fructose diet promotes. And he goes more into starch. He talks about how as food on the market become processed foods, starch took over the supermarket. Most of the center aisles are full of starch, pasta, bread, soups full of potatoes and noodles, corn chips, french fries, mashed potatoes, tater tots, puddings, tapioca, cornmeal, rice, flour, cookies, potato chips, ramen, spaghetti, macaroni, bakery aisles, and whole bakeries inside the store. Starch lends itself very well to processing. It can be shaped and modified. It can thicken liquids to make them more appealing or coat other foods with an attractive brown crust. It gels into a paste, holding water, which adds moist mouthfeel and cheap bulk and weight. He talks about alcohol and how it relates to obesity in several ways. He talks about alcohol affects the same opioid receptors in the brain that eating rich foods does. Alcoholic drinks are empty calories for the most. 12-ounce beer can contain anywhere from 55 calories for the lightest of light beers to well over 300 calories. A glass of wine is around 125 calories. Those calories are not coming from protein or fat. They are from alcohol itself and from sugars and starches, and they do not satisfy hunger. In fact, like sugar, it actually increases hunger. He talks about all the different sugars, what they can do to your body. Um, he debunks a lot of myths that people have about the non-sweeteners, which I know I had. I thought that drinking a Diet Pepsi or anything with an artificial sweetener in it is way better than just drinking a regular soda or juice or something like that. I have consumed a lot of Diet Cokes, Diet Pepsis, things like that. Those little packages of powder you add to your water, I forget the name at the moment, but I've used a lot of those thinking that I was being more healthier and things and helping myself as well. But I did notice that I still have a problem with eating too much. After reading this chapter, I really saw why. Chapter 3 talks about fats and protein. Dietary fats has more calories per gram than protein or carbs, the other two macronutrients. We gave up fat and replaced it with sugar, and we got fat on low-fat diets. Worse still, the kinds of fats we started to eat were the worst types. We replaced lard and butter with hydrogenated vegetable oil and cheap seed oils high in inflammatory omega-6 fatty acids and low in healthy omega-3 fatty acids. We consider saturated fats to be the worst kind. Unlike unsaturated fats, which the body requires to make important tissues and molecules, we have since learned that dietary fat is important for health and weight management. Grass-fed butter has important omega-3 fatty acids. Saturated fats, especially those containing medium-chain triglycerides such as butter and coconut oil, are important for brain function, promoting healthy gut bacteria, controlling inflammation, and raising your metabolic rate. He talks about trans fats have been found to increase the bad form of cholesterol, LDL, more than the saturated fats that were designed to replace. Trans fats also increase inflammation, which leads to heart disease, obesity, and diabetes. They now must be listed in ingredient labels so they can be avoided, and as a result, their use has fallen considerably. Not all trans fats are harmful. And he talks about different things with the saturated fats, the types of fats in the diet, and how our health and how it affects our health in many ways. He talks about omega-3 fatty acids. He talks about what they do to the body. He talks about the obesity problem is that we stopped eating enough fat. Fat in diet reduces hunger. We feel full, satisfied. When we replace fat with sugar and processed carbs, we started eating more at each meal and more between meals because calorie for calorie, those foods don't satisfy hunger as well as fat does. Some carbs, like fructose, actually make us hungrier the more we eat them, which goes back to chapter 2. And I wanted to talk more about this one part in chapter 3 that he talks about. He says about a third of obese people have genes that make their fat cells produce more of the hormone adiponectin than other people. And he talks about adiponectin more in detail later on in the chapters about hormones, which you will hear about later. But these people are protected from inflammation and its consequences. For the rest of us, getting high levels of omega-3 fatty acid can stimulate fat cells to produce more protective adiponectin. Adiponectin reduces insulin resistance so the fat cells can do their job, and it stimulates the reproduction of new healthy empty fat cells that are able to remove glucose and fatty acids from the blood. I found this very interesting. I didn't know a lot about the different things that make up our bodies, and I never heard about this adiponectin and what it does. So it was pretty interesting to me. That's why I wanted to kind of focus on that a little bit with you guys. Talk about fat cells a lot, and I never really paid attention to fat cells, but what they do is they go, if they're empty, the empty ones will remove all of the inflammatory things and sugars and stuff out of your body. He talks about protein and how it causes the levels of the appetite suppressant hormone glucagon to rise more than eating an equal number of calories of carbs. Protein targets satiety, thermogenesis, which is body heat production, energy efficiency, and body composition. Eating protein while losing weight preserves muscle mass as well as bone mass, which I had heard before, so that was pretty cool to hear that again. Getting too much protein eliminates one of the benefits of weight reduction, the increase in insulin sensitivity. So getting too much protein eliminates the help of how protein gives you help you with insulin resistance. The diet studies show that the high protein diet reduced the loss in lean muscle mass by 45%, but at the cost of no improvements in insulin sensitivity. So chapter 3, he talks about fats and proteins. He goes into detail about the dietary fats. He talks the difference between trans fats and saturated fats. He talks about the differences in how it does the body and the body composition by eating these things, about omega-3 fatty acids, what it does to the body. And he talks about protein and what the protein does to the body, how it helps with satiety and things like that. He talks about how, eating these certain types of fats and how they can change the way that our bodies deal with inflammation, and also deals with obesity. So yeah, I hope you guys gain a lot from these book reviews. I have one more review I'm gonna do, chapter 4 and 5 next week, and I'll see you guys then. Have a great day.